Right guys, I have no idea if this has been done before, so I am going to try and put together a tier list. Now, as much as I'm going to put this in a way of trying to be as mathematically accurate as possible, I've also tried to include certain synergies, so I'm basically taking each weapon at sort of like its maximum build. I'm not going to be like particle accelerator versus shotgun at base form. I'm sort of going to say like what you could potentially do with it as a overall tier system, as well as adding in sort of my own personal feelings towards them, because I feel like you need to divide them up a bit more, where there are some that are pretty damn good. There's going to be issues particularly with them. For example, I'm sure a lot of you are going to be uppity about this, but I've got hunting rifle quite low on the list. Damage wise, it is certainly a higher tier weapon, but for me personally, I find it clunky and annoying, particularly when there's a mob of enemies and I have to sit there and just reload every bullet one at a time. I'm aware that's how a hunting rifle works, but after you've reloaded once or twice, you can interrupt that and fire again, which in the long term actually harms your progression further, simply just because meh. Anyway, let's get into this tier list. So here is my tier list. Now, as I said, this is sort of my own personal take on it, so if your favourite weapon is not where you want it to be, I don't care. Anyway, let's have a look at the bottom. D tier, Chicago Typewriter. The only thing really going for this is the fire rate. The damage is low, the magazine is pretty nice, but at the same time, that larger magazine also means longer reload, which is, for me, one of the bigger killers. And the DPS rate of it is just not there. Pretty much look up that list, and whatever you think Chicago Typewriter has going for it, one of those weapons will do that better. Some of them even do all of it better. So, yeah. C tier, Defiler. Although typically the mod is very good, I will not argue that. The main purpose of the actual normal firing system is quite simply to build up that mod so that you can actually do decent damage, which I find a very null way to go, particularly because the normal fire rate doesn't really do much. Twin shot, this for me was a bitter disappointment. Find it rather irritating and clunky to use. The damage isn't particularly great. The only thing really about it is if you try and do a sneaky build with Slayer, Twin shot and crossbow, you can pretty much remain hidden throughout until you hit a boss, at which point you're screwed. Ruin, DPS wise it's okay, it's got good accuracy, it's got pretty good range. The magazine size on it is very, very accommodating. My only issue with it is the mod. I personally don't feel I go down enough to utilise that mod, so I would prefer if I could remove it and put something like Swarm in it, at which point it would potentially be A, but you know, that's my choice. There is one redeeming feature about Ruin, is if you do happen to get it during a hardcore run, it's an extra life, safety net, use that how you see fit. Submachine gun, starting off our B tier. This is actually a pretty solid weapon. It's got decent fire rate, semi-okay damage, and a decent reload speed. But it is, personally for me, still lacking, especially because of some of the new weapons brought out in Subject 2923. Curse of the Jungle God. Initially, yes, this does do a hell of a lot of damage, and if you can get the overcharge proc, because it can proc overcharge, is pretty damn handy. But in order to utilise this, you're either going to need to use the Voice of the Tempest or Eye of the Storm, or try utilising Curse of the Jungle Gods mod, which for me is clunky, inaccurate, doesn't always want to work, and just generally annoying. Shotgun, I find this, although a very good weapon and I do use it a fair bit, I just feel that other things do so much more. Coach gun, Spore Bloom, the new sword off, I feel these do just generally so much more. Hunting rifle, again, like I said, damage wise, this is potentially even in the S tier category, especially over DPS rate as well, but I just feel that that reload animation for me is just very clunky. But yeah, Pride of the Iskall is more of a utility rather than damage, although it does synergize very, very well with bandit armor, having a 3-round burst and those bursts exploding. Again, also potentially using Vulcan's detonator to get a little bit more DPS out of that by proccing fire, but still it's not a great damage dealer. The only pro side to what I've just said with bandit armor and Vulcan's detonator is you can effectively near enough triple your ammo pool with this weapon. And obviously the mod can heal you, which can be absolutely a god-given lifesaver on occasion. Magnum Revolver, this starts out really powerful when you get it. It's a new shiny toy, it hits pretty damn hard, and the fire rate is okay for what you would think, especially if you're used to using something like the hunting pistol. However, when you start looking into it and get a bit more of a feel for the game, you'll realise the Magnum Revolver doesn't really have much in the way of most other pistol weapons. Assault rifle, not really much to say with this. Decent fire rate, decent damage, decent reload speed, as well with the fact that as long as you get the dungeon itself to roll, it's pretty damn easy to pick up. Repeater pistol, you start with this and surprisingly it actually becomes very, very powerful. Just upgrade it, it does some decent damage and it will fire as fast as you can friggin' click. So you're basically golden. Reload time is also pretty damn good. Coach gun, I've had to put this solidly in the middle, really, potentially could be B tier, simply because 2-shot reload. This can get irritating, however, the thing does a ton of damage. Builds mod generation very quickly. The reload speed, although it's often, isn't really too bad. And the range on it, surprisingly for the type of gun it is, I believe it comes under like a shotgun category, is actually really good. This thing can do some hella work, just build it in a certain way. Crossbow, I've been told people don't like this, however, if you go for a sneaky-ish styled build using Shadow Ring, that Serpentine necklace thing, Heartseeker, Slayer armor, you can clear entire dungeons just by using crossbow and you don't even get noticed. It's quite fun. Spitfire, before Subject 2923, I would have made a E category and put this thing in there simply because I just don't like it out of like a personal vendetta. However, since my good friend El Diablo showed me the Pyromancer build, oh my god, this thing puts in work. I just kind of feel it needs a little bit more oomph to put it up a bit higher. Machine pistol, honestly I think this thing is probably one of the best secondaries we've had. It's more accurate, less recoil, longer range, higher fire rate, higher damage than pretty much any other rapid fire pistol in the game. And if you compare it directly to Chicago Typewriter, it's like 15% more damage. It's brilliant. Hunting pistol, personally I do not like this thing because when you build sniper one-shot builds, it's sort of like I have a sniper rifle and then a sniper rifle without a scope. Just pick one, would you? But the problem is they both synergize very, very well with Slayer armor, which does make it stupidly powerful, which I cannot deny. Alternator, I kind of feel like this weapon's got a bit of a bad rap. I do have a build coming for this pretty soon, although it's pretty damn common with weapons that have pretty decent-ish mods. That can also be quite entertaining. I do like this, and I'm hoping that when I show you this build eventually, when I can get it out, that you guys will change your mind as well. S tier, Eye of the Storm. If you use a similar mock-up to a Labyrinth mod power build, don't really concentrate too much on weapon damage, concentrate on more mod generation and mod damage, etc. Fire your mod, fire a shot, fire your mod, fire a shot. You can continue this on for a very long time and the amount of damage that comes out of it is stupid. So why I've had to put it on here. Fusion rifle, weirdly, although very high in rate of fire, the damage isn't actually that great. But what makes it great is that mod. I am sorry, it is absolutely stupid with a good setup, and it becomes even more bonkers when you put a little bit of mod power into it. It's just mental. Devastator, technically speaking, again, this is where like builds kind of come into it, isn't actually that great. I would actually rate Devastator as more of a B. However, with bleed builds the way they are now, I cannot deny this weapon's spot higher up. It is absolutely insane, and none of these builds would work without it, so it's definitely more up there. Repulsor, very, very underrated weapon. This thing hits like a truck. It's got a lot more range than pretty much every other shotgun. It's got a 5-round magazine. It can fire pretty damn fast. It's honestly just a beast. Play around with it a bit more and find something that works for you. Trust me, that weapon is an absolute monster. Sword Off, I really like this weapon. It hits like a truck. My only issue with it is the simple fact that that reload animation, much like hunting rifle, however, normally when you point this at something, it friggin' dies. Now, finally, into my double S tier. These are weapons that can be very, very specifically niched and built around to do something devastating. Hive Cannon is just all round beautiful. It's got a good AoE on the mod, good damage on the mod, and it stacks up corrosive procs, which is like 30% less armor for the monster, which does 30% more damage for you, which is brilliant. Sniper Rifle, although initially I would actually rate this lower, if you can get very good at popping those weak spots, honestly this weapon is near enough or close to unbeatable. Beam Rifle, with current DPS scaling the way it is, particularly with things like Polished Whetstone and Fan of Knives, the DPS rate of Beam Rifle so far is completely unmatched. The closest thing you can get to it is Spore Bloom, just because this thing hits like a frigging meteor. And just in case you're in a bit of a pinch, you can just use your mod to slow everything down. Particle Accelerator, this is kind of my favourite weapon at the moment, which is kind of why it's in my #1 spot. However, in case you don't know, there's currently a weird meta going round, Labyrinth Armor, Particle Accelerator, Devouring Loop. You can get like a decent crit on this for like 60 to 70,000, basically one-shotting Apocalypse bosses. However, if you don't want to go that route, I have put a build video up that does still chew through it in a more legitimate manner. Me, personally, Particle Accelerator is unmatched in its I'm just gonna nuke the frigging crap out of everything category. Anyway, I do apologise for the longer running of this video. Like I said, I've got no idea if anyone's on a tier list before, but I kind of wanted to put my thoughts out there just in case, as well as sort of explain why I've put things where they are. If your weapon isn't where you would like it to be, I am sorry, but I also don't actually care. It's like 50-50 on being mathematical, build synergy, as well as my own personal preferences and thoughts against things. Anyway, that is me. Again, sorry for the longer video. I hope to see you again pretty darn soon. Have fun, good luck, and don't die. It's bad for the health.